What you doing there? You guys making a podcast?
Why would you think that's a good idea?
Podcast?
You two are the dumbest people I've ever seen.
That's janky.
Hello, I'm Jake Trumper, and welcome back to the Jank Podcast. Today, I have the honor of interviewing a group of brothers. It's not a group. Two brothers. There we go. That's what I say. Known as the Raiders of the Lost Podcast. They do movie podcasts, which is super exciting because they're very professional and look awesome. Unlike me, who's an idiot, who does not look professional. But hey, here we are doing podcasts, back greater than ever. Your fun history fact for the day is that you know John Wilkes Booth was only 5'8", 160 pounds. Lincoln would have bodied him if John Wilkes Booth would have made the slightest noise. Lincoln, who had won hundreds of wrestling matches, would have just thrown that man over the balcony. Gosh, that just infuriates me. I hate you, John Wilkes Booth. I want you to know that. Also, he had a brother who was an actor who was like, hey, my brother killed the president, so I'm just going to not be an actor. And then he came back and started acting again. Everyone thought he was going to be the famous brother, and then, well, John Wilkes Booth did the deed. So there's your fun history fact for the day. All right, without further ado, let's get into it. Talking to a podcast who I'm a little envious of for how awesome their name is. Again, they're known as the Raiders of the Lost Podcast. And this episode would not be made possible without OCC merch. Whether you're a small creator like myself, a very large creator, a band, just basically anything. You could be a streamer who has 5 people who want shirts. This is the best way to do it. OCC merch will host your website. They'll do so much with it. I use them personally. All my merch is through OCC merch. Like I love them. I basically know how they run, but there's one line I always have to say perfectly, and here's the one line. Where is it? Oh God. They take care of everything. From hosting your store to shipping directly to your customers. Choose from a catalog of products, upload your artwork, get paid. It's that simple. Literally, I just don't want to mess up that line because of how important that is. You send them a picture and they're like, we got it. It's on a shirt now. I don't have to worry about anybody's address. You get to do all the ordering through online stuff. It's so easy. So if you're looking into it, it's the perfect thing. Tell them Jake sent you. They're going to treat you real nice. That's OCC merch. Okay, now let's get into the podcast. Oh, wait, no, I lied. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. One more thing. Their audio, they sent me an audio clip that sounds beautiful. Played that on the radio because also I like to play my interviews on the radio because, hey, why not? For this episode, I'm just not going to have that audio in. My iMovie crashed after I did all the editing, and for some reason their audio just didn't get in, which, infuriating, but that's okay. They still sound really good through Zoom. I was like, if it sounds awful, I'll go back and do everything, but it sounds good. But I got the other stuff on the radio, so you win some, you lose some. Please don't hate me. Okay, let's get into it with the Raiders of the Lost Podcast. What inspired you guys to have such an incredible name like that?
I think the thing with starting a podcast, obviously it's been very popular for like 5 years, the medium and the format, and a lot of names are very like punny or they're plays on words. So we had to come up with a good name that fit the genre of a movie podcast. And obviously, like podcasts have been relevant since 2014, so all the good names have been taken.
We made a huge list.
Yeah, we made this huge list. Most of them are terrible ideas, and nothing was really sticking. And then, I thought, I was watching Indiana Jones one random night. I'm like, Raiders of the Lost Podcast. It's genius, and it just kind of clicked.
And we love those movies, so it worked out for the podcast.
Dude, that's awesome because I saw you guys on TikTok first, and I saw your name, and I was like, that's genius. They've probably been around forever. And then I looked into it, and you guys had only been around for like a few months, like 3 months, and I was a little jealous because I'm sitting here. My podcast name is just the Jank Podcast. I couldn't think of something, and I was like, good enough. And then you have this elaborate setup. It was incredible. So, and I guess going into how long you've been around, so I guess we were talking about this a little bit before. You already had a podcast and then brought your brother along on with you. And what kind of led to you guys talking mostly about movies?
Yeah, so I'm James. This is my brother Leo. We're identical twins. I know we get that a lot.
Yeah, and, it looks very similar.
Before the movie podcast, I've been producing comedic content for like a year and a half, doing comedy sketches and hot takes. And I started a podcast a year and a half ago called the Boiler Report Podcast, and it's good, it's fun, but it didn't take off like this did. And we always kind of had this idea of doing a movie podcast over the last few years and just like never getting around to doing it and not having the proper time and space to get to it because it's a lot of freaking work. And then during COVID, I had this kid on as my guest every week. I used to have like comedians and actors and random people I knew on as guests. And then he was just my guest permanently because of COVID. So I was like, so then we just like, why don't we do the movie podcast? I mean, if we're going on camera every week together.
Yeah. And also we talk about movies all the time, especially like when we watch a movie, we are always spitting these random facts to each other and having conversations. So we were like, why not just record this and see what happens?
All we talk about is movies anyway. So
yeah.
Like, it was like, seemed like a perfect idea.
That's really cool because it's just I love movies, but I would never be like I am a movie buff because then I see people like you who are just so like you just seem so knowledgeable about every movie. Like you'd be the guys at the party where I could just say a random movie and you would just know you're like a Wikipedia page. It was so cool to see.
Yeah, that's what happens when you're a huge loser and all you do is watch movies growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I acquired this dense knowledge of random facts about movies, and now it's being put to good use finally.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Because I was gonna say, because looking at your TikTok, first of all, congrats on 100K. Like you guys, past 100K by now. But when I first found you, you're at like 69,000 ish. Like, and I was already shocked because that was still pretty early in your career on TikTok, and then now you're already well past 100K. So you guys have been killing it there, and then past 1K on Instagram. Past 4,000 on YouTube. So you guys are seeing like this huge growth. So that's what I was like, these guys are clearly doing something right. What would you say like sets you apart from other podcasts with your type of, because a lot of people do movie podcasts, but you guys, like you said, it's high, yours looks very high budget. It's, I would say, well marketed on TikTok like that. You guys are going viral on multiple clips there. Is there something else that really sets you apart?
I think number one is production value.
Mm-hmm.
We both work in production for a living. Like this isn't our job. I mean, maybe it will be one day, but like we both have real jobs and we work in production. I studied production in college. He did production work too. And then, so our audio sounds good. We know how to build a set. We know how to run audio. We know how to run video. Running video too, I think that's one of the major factors of us doing successful, especially on TikTok, is we have high video quality too. And we have the set built. We have the fortunate, we have a studio in our backyard. It's a separate building. It's its own little thing. So we have anytime we want, we can go record back there. On camera, Leo's really good on camera. He's been getting great the last 6 months because he used to be my guest on my podcast. Mm-hmm. But I've been going on camera for a living for like 5 years at my job. So like I'm very comfortable talking on a microphone, on video. A lot of people aren't. So we have a lot of experience on camera, talking on camera, production value again, editing. So we put all that together. And I think it's just a great combination.
And I think also it's a video podcast as well as the audio, but we cut in photos and GIFs of relevant moments that we're talking about in movies. So we kind of create kind of a slideshow throughout the entire podcast, and especially on TikToks, they're mostly just slideshows of photos and videos. So I think that keeps people visually stimulated to keep watching in the next episode and the next episode, and especially with the TikTok clips.
Something else about TikTok that you guys do really well is, I'm not sure if you see from like other YouTube channels, it's always like, it's black underneath, black on top, and it's just like one little panel of it. You guys cover the whole screen. I don't know if I'm describing that correctly, but
oh yeah, you're right.
That alone right there is, it just already looks so much better. Because you see the ones from YouTube and you're just like, okay, but yours looks like it was made for it. Like, and I feel like it's not that hard to do that, but the fact that you guys take that extra step where it doesn't look like you just screen recorded or downloaded a clip from YouTube and uploaded it. It looks like you actually went through the work. Maybe it wasn't that much work, but to like an average viewer seeing it, it's just like, damn, they really went the extra mile. It looks like
it's integral. So the thing with social media in each platform, you have to understand the way that people are consuming the content. And so Instagram has its content. It's just a square photo, as well as you can click on a video and see the full size, like widescreen 1920 by 1080 video, or you can have a cropped in image. YouTube obviously is widescreen, but then TikTok, people are consuming videos horizontally vertically with the 1080 by 1920 aspect ratio. So they're consuming their content like this. This is how people are now getting their content. Even there are TVs that are coming out that are flipping like that because it's so common and so popular. So you have to understand the medium. You have to understand how people are consuming the content and why people are consuming the content that way. And if you're not going vertically with your videos and you're posting the horizontal widescreen videos on TikTok, you won't get as high engagement. And that's what I explained to him because he didn't really know much about TikTok.
Yeah, I was new to it. Yeah.
And I'm like, bro, you gotta crop the video.
Yeah,
You gotta make it big. You gotta zoom in on us. It seems weird. You're reducing quality sometimes because we film widescreen.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. It's how people are consuming the content.
And it's very easy to do, but it's time consuming is what it is. It takes a lot of work to just get it all vertically correct for the aspect ratio.
Yeah, that's so cool that just all the words that you were using makes me feel dumb. Like the fact that like it seems basic, like the way you describe it, you're like, yeah, this is just basic knowledge. And I'm like, yeah, totally. I totally know exactly what you're saying. And I guess that is something that's genuinely impressive and cool to learn about people. The fact that like I used to have a studio in my backyard as well, but it was a very crappy green screen from like a half screwed in wall that I built in my garage that flooded every spring. It was awful. Did not look high quality at all. No lights, no nothing. There's like one yellow light above me. Looked awful. But your guys is, I would not believe it if you're like, yeah, that's a studio in my backyard. It looks so high quality and so well done. It's truly impressive. And it goes to show like with hard work and integrity, like you're saying, you can see success surprisingly fast. I don't want to like dox into your lives at all. So if you don't want to talk about this one, that's fine. But like, what do you do for a living then?
I don't want to get in like because I'm already like online all over and like people have recognized me, but I don't want to talk about it too much. But I basically run a production for a living, but I do script writing, on camera hosting, editing, video. So like I'm like a one-man crew at my job. So like I've been doing hands-on video production for 6 years straight.
Jeez.
So that's what I do.
And then I do a lot of fashion and musician photography and videography work.
That's incredible. Wow. Like
that's why everything's lit so well.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's
like, look, this is a Zoom call, and I built a little set for this.
I was gonna say it. Like when you guys got on here, I immediately when your like video popped up, I was like, oh, I got a Batman poster in the back. I was like, like my new studio where it's at. It's in such a sketchy place that the Wi-Fi is in and out, so I have to do Zoom calls out of my living room. So I always feel so. Usually everyone else is doing their Zoom call in their living room as well. You've had the most elaborate background out of anything. Like it's almost like what city is it?
That's Boston. We're from Boston.
This is our hometown.
We live in Waltham. I mean, in Los Angeles now, but we're from Massachusetts.
That's awesome.
It's the grid of the city of Boston.
That's incredible. Well, I guess going back to movies then, since we sidetracked a little bit. Actually, I have one more sidetrack question, if that's okay. Do you know Quibbies? What those are called? What a Quibi is?
A short video?
Yeah. Do you think that's ever going to be successful? Because I feel like
is that an app? What is this?
It's a new app. It's like they're making movies and then they're chunking it down to
like 15-minute movies.
Yeah, and they're like vertical. They're making it vertical. It looks like they had the right idea. Just they spent billions in marketing. And then it came out like right before COVID, but it was designed for you to watch it on your like way to work. If you're like on the bus.
That was like the new Netflix, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it was.
I think the problem with that, again, I don't think people are ready for permanent vertical viewing. But like I said, you can check out new TVs from Samsung and Sony. They're making TVs that flip so they can go to the vertical format because we are heading in that direction.
Yeah.
But I don't think the audience is ready for it yet.
And I don't think that cinema should be vertical. I think it should be widescreen to get as much as the environment and image as possible.
In 15 minutes, I love short films. They're great. But I think people really like the escapism of an hour and a half, 2-hour movie.
Yeah, exactly. Which is, I felt kind of bad for them because they spent so much. Like they had a Super Bowl ad. They put so much money. They have like
they had real actors in real legit movies too.
But I think people seek out content for certain different reasons. If you want to watch short stuff, you go to TikTok or Instagram or Snapchat. If you want to watch something long format, you might watch something on YouTube or go to a cinema in a theater to watch a film. So I think people have different avenues for how to watch different kinds of content. So I don't think they'll integrate properly with movies.
Yeah. Sorry, I just had to ask that question because I talk about it with my friends and I feel like we're like cavemen hitting rocks on rocks with it because we're not very smart with this. So you guys are big brain. So I was like, I'll see what like two people who know what they're talking about.
Well, two people who have like, you put one brain together.
One brain together and it works perfectly. Yeah. So I guess jumping back to movies then as a whole, with your guys' podcast, you always talk about themes, right? You'll be like, here's our favorite movies from this certain theme. Do you guys have just a favorite movie in general?
Yeah. I think my favorite movie is probably No Country for Old Men.
Holy
which
shit!
is-
Wait! Stop! Are you joking right
We've
now?
just become no, I'm serious. Is that your
That is
favorite
my
movie?
favorite movie. I
Yeah.
make everyone I know watch it. Everyone's like, it's so slow, it's so boring. I was like,
Oh my God, come
it's the
on.
adventure, the references to the Vietnam War, like all of just this
Yeah.
undertone playing to it. It's
It's based off a book by Cormac McCarthy,
Yes,
who's an amazing American author. He's my favorite author in general, and it's the best probably book to film adaptation I've ever seen in my life by the Coen brothers. They made it. It's amazing. Josh Brolin's in it, and it's probably one of my favorite villains of all time with Javier Bardem as
So good.
as Anton Chigurh. Woody Harrelson's in it. It's an amazing movie.
so good. And seeing Woody Harrelson afraid of someone is just, it was so cool. Like when I watched it, I was like,
moment.
just him sitting in that chair is so intense. Like it does
You don't
such a
have
good
to do
job
this.
of just slow build and then just some of the most intense scenes ever. And it's just,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
wait,
Filmmaking wise, it's everything about it is a masterpiece.
okay,
And the cool thing about it, there's no music in it.
okay, I'm
Look
so
at
sorry
that.
we're sidetracking you for a second as we jump on the No Country
your
for
show,
Old
man.
Men bandwagon. Now I want to know, also, are you drinking milk?
No, it's coffee.
It's coffee. I was
Looks
just
like
looking
chocolate
at it,
milk.
I was like, it's just
I
a,
wish there was chocolate milk.
it looked like chocolate milk. Okay, so do you think
Weekends I have an IV of it in my arm. It's all
yeah,
good.
just dude, I feel that my blood pressure is through the roof. I drink so much coffee. But with No Country for Old Men, do you believe the theory that he like thinks of himself as the representation of death, the main villain?
Who, Anton Chigurh?
Yes.
That's a good theory.
I never really thought about it like that. I think that Anton Chigurh really isn't human, he seems like in the movie to me. He doesn't
Mhm.
really possess any empathy at all. He has no emotions really. He does get some enjoyment out of what he does,
Yeah.
but I can see that as him being as like a metaphor for death for sure.
Yeah,
Like,
he has-
death's coming for us all.
But he
Yeah.
also has a strict code, and he has kind of a justice and fairness code, especially with the coin flip. It's like
Yeah.
you have a chance to survive or not, and so he lets the idea of chance factor
Yeah.
into his killing.
Which kind of always made me think about the death thing because it's like it's fate. He lets
Yeah.
fate decide. Death is
That's cool.
fate
I
does
think that's
fate's
cool. I
bidding,
like
which
that.
I always
I
thought.
can agree with that.
Do you also? This is a very specific scene. When you know the guy who hired multiple different people to look for the money, the bigwig guy.
Yes, Milton from The Office.
Yeah,
he's
so
from
when
Dodgeball, too.
So when he comes in and he kills him and then looks over at the blonde guy and goes, "Who are you?" The guy's like quick and to the point. He's like, "I'm nobody. I didn't see." Do you think he let him live? That one.
I think he did. I think he probably did the coin flip with him because it looked like he turned his back on him probably, and he like tried not to look at him while he was there in the room with him. But I'm sure he probably did kill him because he did get a look at his face.
I think it killed him because he doesn't want any loose ends, and the Coen brothers, just like the ending scene with his wife, he lets us decide what happened, and they let us use our imagination to try and think about what we think happened.
Which is
So I think he killed him.
which is one difference from the book, because in the book it directly says he killed her, I believe. I could be wrong.
They
but-
kind of they
They-
hint
I
at it
think-
basically.
I think it's pretty obvious because he walks out of the house and he looks at his shoes, so
Check
he's
if there's
looking for
blood.
blood.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
there's any blood on his shoe. So
yeah,
it's pretty obvious. They don't show it, but there's very strong hints that he did.
yeah. And then there was one more question I had about it, but I kind of forgot it. But I'm glad I've literally never met anyone else who's like, yeah, No Country for Old Men. I was like, I
have two posters of that movie.
It's a
I love
masterpiece.
it.
real dude. I think I watched it. In like high school. I was a sophomore in high school, and just rooting for this. This is a huge spoiler. Anyone watching right now, just skip forward like a minute. When just the fact that like as a high schooler, I had never seen a movie like that where it's the dude is literally, you're following this main character, this grand main character. Finally, someone putting up a fight against this foe that we saw who seemed virtually unstoppable, and then the almost poetic death of him being so unpoetic in the sense of like he wasn't even killed by the big villain. He's just killed off screen and his body's shown like that, and it's done. And
We
just
don't see it happen. His life he doesn't matter. That's the thing. Is like ultimately he didn't matter to any at all.
yeah, which is so crazy because the whole time you're being told this guy matters. Look at this. You see all these big bad guys afraid of this main villain. He's unstoppable. The only person to even make him bleed is this guy that you're following. But in actuality, it's just he was like lucky and his luck ran out because he got distracted. It's just,
Yeah.
it was just seeing that like for a split. Like I remember like I had to pause it, rewind it and be like, is that him? Is that his dead body? Did they just kill this guy?
It's shocking. It's shocking.
It was. I was like, what? No, why? And then the stupid old lady mom, his mother-in-law, got the daughter killed. Man, I hate it all.
It's a stressful movie.
Man, that mother-in-law, if she wasn't there, he'd be fine. All right.
Yeah. But
Sorry.
that movie came out the same year as his favorite movie too.
Oh
My
yeah,
favorite
sorry.
movie
We just went on like a 10-minute rant about that. Sorry.
All right, man. We love that movie.
Dude, okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one. I've had to force so many people to watch it. All right. And what is your favorite movie as well? Sorry about that kind of
So my
sidetrack there.
favorite actually came out the same year as No Country. Is There Will Be Blood.
Oh,
Paul
okay.
Thomas Anderson's film.
That is I don't know that one as much, so I can't jump into
you
it
gotta
as
watch
much.
You
But
gotta watch it, man.
I now feel I know I've seen it, but not as many times as No Country for Old Men. But I guess I'm trying to remember now. Because did that come out in 2007? Is that when No Country for Old Men came out?
2007.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then
Those two films were competing for Best Picture. No Country ended up winning Best Picture over that.
really, that's so.
Yeah.
I guess what makes you pick There Will Be Blood over No Country for Old Men? Then, like, what stood out to you?
I love the filmmaking of it. I love the story of this character. And Daniel Day-Lewis is my favorite actor, and Paul Thomas Anderson is one of my favorite directors. And I love dark dramas. I love characters that are kind of anti-heroes.
Yeah.
And so I think this was one of the master classes of filmmaking and acting we've seen in the last 20 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't realize that came out in 2007. A lot of brooding movies came out in 2007. Holy
Yeah.
cow!
It was a good year.
I guess
Actually, while No Country was filming, they had to stop for a day because the scene where they blow up the oil field and light it on fire, they could see the smoke in the distance because they shot in the same state, so they had to stop production for a day
They're
because
shooting the same
they
desert.
blacked out the sky when the oil rig lights on fire.
Yeah.
Are you? That's actually
They're
hilarious.
filming-
See,
yeah,
you
bro.
guys are
They're
literally a
filming
Wikipedia
simultaneously.
page. You're just like, by the way, fun fact. Here's
all
this
good.
as well. You guys.
Well, that's why we figured we'd make a podcast. People think we just like research. We know all this shit. Like half of it we just know. For some reason we know it.
That's insane. That is so cool. That is so. I guess right now it seems like you both have very successful jobs as well, and it seems as though the podcast was like a fun hobby that you're jumping into that is now seeing a lot of success. So it's, I guess, what is the long-term goal of the podcast? Because like I said, it's not like, oh, we need this podcast to be successful. You both are already very successful people. So I guess with the podcast, what is the goal there in the end with the podcast?
1 million subs, man.
Fair point. Touche.
No, my goal is to have the number one movie podcast on the planet. I'm trying to dethrone rewatchables, dethrone those other ones, because for us, I love podcasts personally. I listen to a bunch of different ones. I listen to Joe Rogan. I listen to a lot of crime podcasts.
Yeah.
And I've tried to get into movie podcasts, but there's not a single movie podcast that I can listen to and make it through a full episode because I don't think a lot of them they're good, but they're not as good as they can be, and they kind of. A lot of them, they come across as pretentious and way too like analytical, trying to be like the smartest person in the room.
Some of them are nitpicky, like they'll be negative about movies.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'll be like, come on, they're just movies. Like, and so we
Bad opinions.
We try to stay positive about loving movies and also talk about them just like normal guys or girls talk about movies.
Yeah,
just like conversation.
We wanted to make it feel like it's just like every conversation you have with your movie buddies, like your movie friends. We all have them. You're just shooting the shit, talking about a movie, talking about characters. We want to make it that vibe, as well as production information, behind the scenes information, actors information, anecdotes, all sorts of fun facts and trivia about the films as well, all into one show.
Yeah. Have you guys ever, I've got two other friends who make a podcast. It's called the Dead Meat Podcast. Not sure if you guys have ever heard about that. They focus.
I think I've seen it on the charts for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. They make horror movie podcasts. So they only focus on horror movies. And you were talking about like, positive. The only two movie podcasts I listen to is your guys's and the Dead Meat one. And it's
thanks, man.
Yeah, it's the positivity. You're right. There's something about like it's sometimes fun to look at someone nitpicking something, but when every single episode is nitpicking, it gets old.
Yeah.
And like when
That's what it means. Yeah.
Yeah, well, like when I found Dead Meat, I was like, whoa, it's horror movie and they're positive. That's awesome. And then I found yours, and it's just a it's a way broader genre. You're like covering, I don't know what's coming next. Like it could be, hey, since Halloween's coming, here's a ton of horror movies. Here's the last one you guys did was like Cars, right? Like Cars theme, not the movie Cars.
So
cinematic
we
masterpiece, yes,
yeah.
but not the movie
Yeah.
Cars.
We love every genre of movies. We love everything from like romantic comedies to like war period piece films. It's like, and so we don't limit ourselves to one genre. And I'm sure that's a really cool podcast, but we like to talk about every kind of movie that there is.
And that I think No, I was just agreeing. Like, I think that's what really sets you apart from people is you'll cover everything and put an interesting, positive spin. Even if you don't love it, you don't just bash it.
Yeah.
You'll be like, here's our
there
critiques,
are movies that are,
but we respect it.
There are movies that are fun to make fun of. They're like universally like, these movies suck, but it's fun to hate on them. And we're actually going to do a podcast about that. But I think that people can be a little pretentious and try to talk bad, try to talk smack about movies that are really great, but then they find like one little issue with it. And it's like, movies are really hard to make. A lot of people are involved with them. No one sets out to make a bad movie. They always have the best intentions. And it's a hard thing to do. So I think it's important to be positive about talking about movies, not to try and tear them down in any way.
Yeah, and I personally despise critics of all kinds, except for like someone like Ebert. He was a great film critic. Because he obviously saw the good intentions of filmmaking, but obviously if someone deserved to get torn apart, you tear them apart. But I despise all critics. I hate reading Rotten Tomatoes reviews, not just movies, but of music. Whenever I see an album review, it's like, you don't even make music and you're talking all this shit about somebody. Sorry for cursing.
No, you're good. You're good.
Like what Leo just said, like people don't understand how hard it is to make a movie, the time involved, the hundreds and hundreds of people involved in every single production. And it's an endeavor to take on. And most of these people have never even made a short film in their life. All they do is think that they're high and mighty because they watch a bunch of movies and think they could do a better version of it, but they could never make anything like that in their entire lives. Even if they had $200 million, they couldn't pull it off. Yeah. So I think I don't believe in standing on the shoulders of people's maybe faults or mistakes they make in their art. But I choose, because I also work in production. I understand what goes into making something that big and that huge.
Yeah, they should be celebrated.
It's an endeavor, man.
Yeah.
There are a ton of shitty movies which we'll go over, but like we'd like to see, you know what? There are great things in every movie. I mean, Top Gun is a great movie. It's got some cheesy crap. We'll talk about that, but like that's an example that you can tear it apart and love it at the same time.
And I think right there is already like an amazing road to be taking to get you as 1 million subscribers or the #1 movie podcast is. That is a different route, is a genuine respect for the art. A lot of people will be like, I respect art, but that's why it's bad and I have a right to be angry at it. You guys definitely take a different route, which is genuinely enjoyable. It's nice to listen to. So I think those long-term goals are and you guys are moving up so quickly. Like I said, every time I check your profile, it's a few new 1,000 followers on TikTok. So it's so great to see positivity in such a negative world right now be successful. I do have one more question for you guys. This one always catches people off guard. I'm going to throw it to you. This is a more history comedy podcast with interviews in between. Do you have a favorite historical figure?
Yeah, I totally forgot to think about this.
I warned you guys in the beginning, and I was like, good luck. Go for it.
I totally forgot to think about it.
I have one that people don't really know about. We actually spoke about him on a podcast a couple episodes ago. Is Alan Turing, the scientist.
Oh,
and Alan Turing is still a very unknown figure, but he played probably the most important role in helping defeat the Nazis during World War II, where he created the first computer, which helped crack the Nazi code that they were using to relay information to one another. And once that code was cracked, the Allied forces were able to move on them in all various ways because they knew their strategies beforehand, and that helped essentially win the war for the Allied forces.
And however, Alan Turing was a homosexual at the time, and in England it was illegal. In a lot of countries it was illegal.
Yeah.
So he was forced to go through forced hormonal therapy, which made him, obviously become very depressed and anxious-ridden, and he committed suicide at the young age of 41. And we probably lost one of the greatest minds to ever exist on the planet Earth due to prejudices.
So I think he's an amazing figure that people should be speaking about more, because he pretty much helped save all of Western Europe and North America from the Nazis
and brought technology to where it is today.
Yeah.
Is he in a movie or mentioned in a movie? Is that what kind of brought it?
The Imitation Game, Benedict Cumberbatch plays him. It's got Keira Knightley in it too. Great film.
That's incredible. And that's another great thing I think that is like why film is underrated, is it does bring to light a lot of unsung heroes that have just went throughout
100%.
history that weren't doing it for the glory, rather doing it because they genuinely wanted to help. And they're unsung, and then a movie director who knows what they're talking about discovers it, talks about it, and it can truly bring that to light. And unless you have a different historical figure, I think that one was just so glorious. We can just.
I thought it was
Oh, you got
Thanks,
one?
man.
All right, go for it. Go
Yeah, you gotta one up me.
I probably won't because, well, when I was a kid, I was like obsessed with ancient cultures, and I still kind of am. Like, I love ancient culture movies, like Gladiator, or like any movie about like ancient Egypt or anything like that. So like, I was always like a huge buff for like ancient Rome and Julius Caesar.
Yeah.
I even played Julius Caesar as a play when I was in 4th grade.
Nice.
And obviously the guy did some bad things. Obviously, he was a dictator of a massive empire. But
Yeah.
I just love ancient culture, and he's a historical figure, and that's my quick answer on that.
Yeah.
I thought that's what you were gonna pick.
He knows me so well.
To be fair, before he could fully become a dictator, he was assassinated in the Forum. So one could argue he wasn't fully a dictator yet. So
Technically, yeah.
technically,
Well, then Caesar was used as a term for basically the next of the lines.
yeah, he basically was. Yeah, but awesome. That was great picks. I guess now to wrap it up, what social medias do you guys have? I know we talked about obviously TikTok and stuff, but throw them
He'll
out.
let you know, he's in charge of the social
I'm in charge
media.
of the socials. He does all the editing. I do everything else. So
Beautiful.
So obviously Instagram, Raise the Lost Podcast. TikTok is our best format right now. YouTube, we put up the full episodes of the podcast, as well as clips for each episode on Raise the Lost Podcast YouTube channel. We got a Facebook, but we just posted links to that. We have a Patreon where people can support us monthly. We have 3 different tiers of support: $2, $5, and $10. Each one comes with specific perks. Like the $10 one, you get the works, you get like a video sent from us, a personalized video. You get a monthly shout out on the podcast to get immortalized forever on the show.
Nice.
And then we don't really have Twitter because Twitter is just a cesspool of negativity and the horribleness of humanity.
Twitter, I hate Twitter. It's one of those things where Twitter is meant for, you already have to be famous to be successful on Twitter. You're not going to get Twitter famous.
God. The things people write on Twitter,
it's awful.
Horrible.
Yeah, I don't blame you on that
terrible.
one. Do you guys have any personal social medias as well, or?
Yeah, so I have my comedy account. It's just James Devaney Productions. Devaney's of all E's, but I don't really post much on that anymore because we put so much time in the movie podcast. This thing takes up like combined like 80 hours a week of work. So like we're basically both like working 2 jobs because it's a lot of people are saying this is a lot of work to do this production.
And I have a personal one too. It's just Leo Devaney, and it's got all of my photography and video work in it. But the last like 2 months it's just been all podcast posts.
Yeah, that's
we're
awesome.
Just going full tilt on it.
That's really cool. And then did you guys I'm sorry, I think I cut you off before you got to mention your YouTube channel?
Yeah, it's just Raise the Lost Podcast. Yeah.
Beautiful. Just wanted to make sure that
every
one
audio
was,
format.
That's
just search our name in every format and you'll find it.
We're everywhere.
Yeah, again, full circle, that name. I love it. I feel like when I first announced it, I was like, what made you think of such a great, I feel like it seemed like I genuinely am like a little envious of that name. It is so.
Honestly, we've had some people say it's a terrible name. I'm like, what are you talking about? That's a genius name because first of all, I came up with it. And second of all, it's just classy.
And the pictures you guys have with it, like on the YouTube channel, both of you, just, dude, I love it. But yeah.
The original one, I photoshopped our heads onto the suits of like Indiana Jones's body. And like, I just like have like a villain kind of look. And then we just retook it a month ago, like a real format. Like I got a tuxedo and he got the outfit for Indiana Jones.
Yeah, we got them on Amazon.
And so like it's like he's like the hero Indiana and I'm like the villain.
Yeah, I loved it.
Tuxedo.
That was so awesome, guys.
A great graphic designer made the logo.
Yeah, someone just updated it for us the other day.
Looks fantastic.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for Thanks for coming on to the podcast. There we go. Nailed it. It was a lot of fun, guys. And just like that, another interview for the books. Thank you so much to the Raiders of the Lost Podcast for granting me the privilege to interview them. Hopefully, next time I won't ruin the audio. Next week, Everett and I are going to be taking a look at every single president and deciding which one would win in a straight-up fist fight to the death. Personally, I have my money on someone like Lincoln, Washington, Roosevelt, maybe Gerald Ford. We'll see. That's coming up next week, only at the Jank Podcast. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, Troop. Love you lots. Don't forget to go check out the Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Other than that, till next time.